What if you don't need to live in pain and suffering? What if you could give up your karma and have a life of abundance and joy? What if you could start creating magic and miracles that you never thought were possible? Get ready to listen, share, and experience the magic that is you. Now, here's the host of Creating Abundance with Ease radio show, Dr. Helen Gitlevich.
Welcome. I'm Dr. Helen Gitlevich on Creating Abundance with Ease. And today our show is Choice or Necessity. I'm a medical doctor who became Access Consciousness Facilitator and Akashic Record teacher, as well as I'm 3-day body facilitator, podcast host, and writer. And from being a doctor, I invite people now to a different possibility with their health, money, and relationship through private sessions and classes around the world. And today we'll be talking about choice or necessity in our lives. How much of your life and your actions on every day are done out of necessity, out of responsibility, out of obligation? Oh God, all of it. Yeah. And how much of your life are you actually choosing for you instead of somebody else, by the way? Let's talk about what is choice and how to create more of what we desire instead of what we have to do. Because I talk from my own personal experience. I grew up in Russia. That was a culture where everybody had to do for the country. It wasn't what the country can do for you. It was what can you do for the country? Always, always. And as a kids, we were entrained that everything is about Mother Russia. When I came here, oh, and family is everything, of course. That was my mom, my grandma, everybody's ideas. So when we came here, same thing. It's about family, it's about obligations that you have to. And it was kind of like heavy. In access consciousness, we have tools. Access consciousness is was created by Gary Douglas and Dr. Dane here, and you can find out more at the accessconsciousness.com. But not until I got to access consciousness, and I've searched all my life. I've done a lot of different modalities. I've done a lot of meditation, searching for the truth, searching for that lightness. And in access, we talk about whatever light is true, and whatever is a lie is heavy. So all my life, I felt that those obligations was heavy. There was a lie there somewhere. And not until we came kind of like, there was a moment in my life, let's put it this way. My mom felt that I was obligated to call her. And I don't know about you, but in certain cultures, mother is everything. And you have to honor and obey them more so than your husband or the husband's wives or whatever it is. So I had to call her every single day. And if I didn't, I would hear grief. I resisted and reacted to that. I kind of like, and I learned and agree with that by, yeah, I have to call her, but I didn't want to. I had to, but I didn't want to. I must, but no, it was not a choice at that moment. So I started playing with the tools of access. One of them are questions. And those questions are about judgments. What were my judgments about calling her? And that was just one question. And I worked with that question for a while, asking, okay, so what are my what are my judgments about my mom? What are the judgments about calling her? What are judgments about me calling her? And so on and so forth. It took me about 3 months getting myself out of obligation because I realized I don't have to call her. This is just a lie that I was resisting and reacting to. The truth was, I like talking to her on the phone. I like seeing her. She's my mom. She has a lot of wisdom, or she had, because she passed away a year and a half ago. And now I wish I could call her, but she's no longer here. Yeah, I can talk to her spirit, but it's different. So, how much all our lives we resist to something that we're actually choosing, and actually not resisting and doing things out of obligation that's not necessary. Look at your life right now and look at everything you're doing, from something small and insignificant like brushing. Well, it's not insignificant. Brushing your teeth is actually very important, to calling your mom, or honoring your husband, or going to work. Everything has its place. But how much of each thing is your choice versus its obligation to do that, or resistance and reaction to doing that? Think of it for a second. And would you be willing in that moment right now, let go of everything you've decided is your obligation and just choose? And everywhere where you're looking at that as obligation, because as I was looking at the phone calls with my mom, they were not choice until I choose it. It was the obligation that I was resisting to. The actions were the same. A lot of time the actions will be the same, but the actions will be actual action, not the resistance, and not obligation, not have to, must to, ought to. All of those are systems of control. Because a lot of times with systems of control, what happens? You either do it out of obligation, or resist doing and not doing something that you're choosing based on your resistance. Oh, and my God, I did so many of those. A lot of times people would tell me, oh, you have to do that. And I'm like, really? Fuck you, no. I'm not doing that. Just because you tell me to, even that I desire it, I still will not do that. That's part of being who we are. Humanoids, humans, like a nature that we are not doing whatever people tell us. And yet, a lot of times we will do it because they tell us, because we decided it is an obligation. And yeah, we don't choose because we're told we supposed to, and robbing ourselves of our desires, of something that will create more in our lives, something that will open up different possibilities, but we resist and react. And sometimes we resist and react to something that create more in our lives. It's also twisted, so insidious. A lot of times we don't even realize we're doing it out of necessity or out of resistance and not choosing. I know when I came to this country, I was told my uncle, oh, you shouldn't go to college. You can't go to college. You're too stupid. You have to learn language first. So you have to go back to high school. And I graduated from high school in Russia. I came right after high school, basically, literally, like finished high school. We got up and left. Um, and I wasn't going back to high school. Come on. Guys, how many of you would like to go back to high school? It was not the best time of my life. No way. Even now, I look at that maybe with a little bit more fondness than I used to. It was very difficult time. A lot of judgments, a lot of bullies, a lot of stuff that was going on. There was no way I was going back to high school. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to college no matter what. I did desire it, but I did it out of resistance. And it's the same with not going back to high school. That was a resistance too. It was like, nope, not doing that. I have no clue if it would be a contribution if I went to high school for a few months or not. But within 2 months, I was in college, pretty much. I kind of like slipped under the wire with the scores just touch above passing. Because let's face it, I did not know English. I barely could speak. I barely could understand when I came, because all I had was high school English. Just like you would have Spanish here, or French, or German, or Russian. That was just a little bit of basics. But I sat down in front of TV and watched the movies, the soap operas, so crime dramas, everything. 24/7 pretty much the TV was on, and I was reading books, getting the English that I needed to get to college. But that's an example of where it worked for me. And yet there were times where I resisted and reacted. I remember a guy that I was introduced to. And just because I was told, oh, he's a good guy, he's nice by my parents, I didn't want to date him. I have no clue what would have created if I did. But they were for him. So it meant that I have to rebel. How many of you did that? And how many of you actually created your life based on that resistance and reaction, or alignment and agreeing? And we'll talk more about that after the break. This is time for our first break in the show. And you've been listening to Creating Abundance with Ease with myself, Dr. Helen Gitlevich, on Inspired Choices Network. And when we return, we'll talk more, and we'll be right back.
Many of us live our lives based on karma, on the past, and all the unfinished business in our lives. What would you choose if you did not have karma, or if you could choose what you desired instead? By tuning into Creating Abundance with Ease radio show with Dr. Helen Gitlevich, you'll receive tools and inspiration you can use to create the abundance in your life. You are an infinite being with infinite choices. Are you ready to have ease with creating abundance? Listen for Creating Abundance with Ease radio show every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Mountain, and 9 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is the Creating Abundance with Ease show with Dr. Helen Gitlevich. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email by sending to helen.g@att.net. Now, back to the program.
Welcome forward, everyone. I am Dr. Helen Gitlevich on Creating Abundance with Ease. And today our show topic is choice or necessity. And me being a medical doctor, kind of like in the past and present, people say you never can quit being a doctor. But now I invite people to a different possibility with their health, with their money, with their relationship, using the tools of access consciousness and Akashic Records, and pretty much any modality that I've explored over the years. So today we're talking about how much in our lives we choose versus we act out of obligation or out of resistance or out of alignment and agreeing with whoever gives us an advice. I remember when I was a kid, I loved Mark Twain. And of course, I didn't read it in original, but I read it in translation. But I remember him saying an interesting thing, that we ask for advice into situation, either to follow it and then blame somebody else, or to do the opposite. So that kind of like, I remember that, but I didn't put those two and two together until I started kind of like exploring more what is choice. And the truth is, we do ask people for advice, or sometimes we get unsolicited advice and we either follow it and then we blame, oh, you told me to do that. How many times we've done that? Oh, she told me. Oh, my boss said so. Or we do the opposite and it's like, oh, maybe I should have listened. But we did it out of kind of like resistance instead of like, what would I choose now? What do I desire? Because a lot of times we have no clue. When I got divorced, I didn't even know what I liked to eat, because majority of my married life, I would cook whatever my husband liked or whatever my daughter liked or whoever was coming for dinner liked. I had no idea what my tastes were until I started exploring it. And it's just a simple thing, small thing out of all our lives. But that's the same thing. A lot of times we look at our families for how to act or how not to act. Think about it. How often, if you admire your parents, you would say, oh, I would love to be like them. And then you act accordingly. Or if you don't like your parents, or you don't like what they accomplished or what they did or how they treated you, he would say, oh, I never be like my mom, or I'll never be like my dad. And guess what? A lot of times you will, because if you're resisting and reacting to that, you created what called biomimetic mimicry. You create pathways in your brain to pretty much be like them, but if you're refusing to be them, you hide all of that in subconscious or unconscious parts of your brain. In both cases, if you like or you don't like, you resist, you align, doesn't matter. You have to be like them first, and then either refuse or create the same way. So all our lives, we bounce between all of those necessities, either obligations or resistance. All of that is not creating our lives. So what would create our lives? And then we go immediately, oh, I have to decide for me. Yeah, that's another thing. Because when we start deciding, we have to make a right choice, the correct decision for the rest of our lives. What if it's not? What if it's choice much simpler? What if a choice is just choosing for the next few seconds, like 10 seconds, maybe for the next minute or the next day or a month? Now, with everything that's going on in the world, all the control systems, um, my daughter visited Mexico, and there's a lot of freedom in Mexico right now. You can travel, you don't need COVID tests unless you come back to the States. So she spent a month there in Tulum, came back, and immediately she's like, "Oh, it was so good there." And I'm like, "What if we go there again in 2 weeks?" And it was a choice. That was total choice because, okay, if we don't like it, we'll come back. It was such an ease getting there, coming back. So choice is always has ease behind it. It doesn't have, and I'm not talking about easy. People a lot of times confuse ease and easy. Ease is just choosing it and going for it. There might be obstacles there. There might be some effort that needs to be done, like buying tickets, looking for it, looking for apartment. But it was ease with associated with that. There was expansion. It felt good, kind of like, and when you're trying to make a decision, even in the word decision, feel it for a second. Decision. I have to make the right decision. It contracts. It solidifies things. You have to move through kind of like a heavy energy. So let's play a game. For the next 10 seconds, let's say the Earth is going to die, the asteroid coming, or there is COVID everywhere and you have no idea what will happen, who has it, who hasn't, or you need the vaccine or you don't. For the next 10 seconds, what will you choose? I'm just timing it. Okay, you didn't die in 10 seconds. What will you choose now? And again, choose again. I lied. My clock just disappeared. So we'll just pretend that it's 10 seconds. Choose again. Choose again. And it doesn't have to be 10 seconds. You can choose in 5. Let's say you chose something and it didn't work. Choose again. You can choose it in 2 seconds increments, 3 seconds, 5, 20. Doesn't matter. A day. One of the exercise, and that's actually a tool of today, of the week or whatever we have on ICM. For the next week, play the game. Maybe outside, maybe inside of your house. Choose something for 10 seconds and then choose something else. And then 10 seconds later, choose something else. Put an alarm every 10 seconds. Do it for maybe 5 minutes and see if something shifts. If you actually start realizing what is choice and how much it's different from the decision, obligations, or anything you've been doing up till this moment. And what I found, a lot of people have issue with choice. In the beginning, I actually did not know what choice was. And years ago, I remember somebody talking, well, not somebody, but my mentor actually talked to me, and she was asking me, so what would you choose now? And it was about my marriage. And I'm like, I don't have a choice. She looks at me and says, not having a choice is still a choice. I did not recognize that until years later. It's like, yeah, not having a choice is still a choice. We are choosing our points of view. We are choosing what choice we have or not have by either resisting and reacting or aligning and agreeing with whoever points of view around us. So, what if it's about just choosing? And sometimes I choose now, not necessarily recognizing the end result, just following the energy. Whatever is around us speaks to us. Everything kind of has energy, every molecule. And a lot of times, things that are not related create a different reality for us. I remember I was creating a class a few years ago. And with that, I knew I was supposed to do marketing, I was supposed to call people, blah, 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 all of that necessity. And suddenly I was drawn to clean out my closet. And I'm like, what? Clean out the closet? How is that related to creating a class and calling people and all that creation stuff? But I followed it. I'm like, you know what? I'd like to clean up my closet. I did about, I think, 3 or 4 bags to donation. Barely touched the closet because I have so much to clear. I'm one of those hoarders. Pocket pot. By the way, that's clearing statement. And you can find out more on the clearingstatement.com if you're curious. But after clearing the closet for about 2 or 3 hours, it felt so good because before I resisted and reacted of even putting the class on the website. It was kind of like, okay, I'll put it, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. But after that, suddenly there was such a space that when I put up the class, immediately 2 people signed up. And I'm like, what? What just happened? I chose for me, not out of necessity that everybody else told me, where I would resist and react. Because I did react and resist. Everybody told me about marketing because I don't like Facebook. I don't like Instagram. And what if you don't have to? What if it's just a choice? Because it's totally not linear. And I'll talk more after our second break of the show. And you've been listening to Creating Abundance with Ease with myself, Dr. Helen Gitlevich on Inspired Choices Network. And we'll be right back.
Many of us live our lives based on karma, on the past, and all the unfinished business in our lives. What would you choose if you did not have karma, or if you could choose what you desired instead? By tuning into Creating Abundance with Ease radio show with Dr. Helen Gitlevich, you'll receive tools and inspiration you can use to create the abundance in your life. You are an infinite being with infinite choices. Are you ready to have ease with creating abundance? Listen for Creating Abundance with Ease radio show every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Mountain, and 9 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Magic and abundance are everywhere. What if you could tap into abundance and start creating your life with complete and total ease? Working with Dr. Helen Gitlevich will give you exactly that, total ease in creating abundance in your life. Dr. Gitlevich creates classes all over the world, both in person and online. She works with you to create abundance with your money, with your body, with your relationships, with all areas of your life with total ease. Connect with Dr. Helen Gitlevich at creatingabundancewithease.com. Her contribution in your world will be a noticeable gift in a very short period of time.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is the Creating Abundance with Ease show with Dr. Helen Gitlevich. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email by sending to helen.g@att.net. Now, back to the program.
Welcome forward, everyone. I'm Dr. Helen Gitlevich on Creating Abundance with Ease. That was our app where you can listen to me, listen to every podcast host, and watch us on the TV. And today our show topic is choice or necessity. And we started talking a little bit about not having a choice is still a choice, because that's for me was an opening, because our point of view create our reality. So if we resist and react to something that will create more in our lives, we create more of that. Or if we desire it and we kind of push for it, a lot of times that's not coming either, because that's not a choice anymore. We made it into necessity. When it's obligation, we always resist, no matter what it is. If it's good for us, if it's bad for us, if it's right, wrong, doesn't matter. There is always a resistance to obligation or responsibility. But responsibility is interesting word. Words have kind of like meaning that we don't even realize they have. Because if you look at the word responsibility, it actually means ability to respond. That's all. But we made it into obligation by our own kind of like usage of the word. Does it mean that the word actually has that energetic vibration? No. But we use it as energetic vibration and we resist to that as energetic vibration. So look at your life for a second and see every point of your life where you created shit based on that you resisted and reacted to somebody or something that actually would create something greater. But you didn't want to do it because that person told you so. Especially the person that either your parent that you might not like or you resist because they are kind of like controlling, maybe just a bit. I know my mom was very controlling, and yet at the end of her life, she wasn't. But there was that feeling of control because I'm so used to that I still resisted and reacted anything that she said. I had to clear a lot of things before I could actually hear what she has to say. And what if we didn't resist? Because a lot of times when we hear people talk to us or we see something, it's always through the filters of our experiences, not necessarily even with them. Because a lot of times we resist and react to a person that looks like the person that we hate or don't like, or we loved in the past, or we listened to, and they made us do something that created havoc or disaster. Maybe not even this lifetime. I'm talking about all of those points of view, all those filters, not necessarily happen when you remember it, or you might not even remember it the way it happened. It might be previous lifetimes, it might be 1,000 years ago, it might have been 5 minutes ago, but you saw that event or you heard that thing that they said through the prism of your own experiences. I love the joke that I tell in a lot of classes. You probably heard me on podcast. A young couple came and moved into a new house, and there was a neighbor who did laundry every single day. So the newlyweds would have breakfast right when she would hang the laundry. And that was in the days when people hang laundry, didn't have the dryers, or in the country where they do hang their laundry. So the wife would look out of the window and say, "Oh my God, somebody has to tell her to use the bleach because her laundry is not white. It's kind of like dirty. She doesn't do a good job of doing the laundry." The husband kept quiet. And that was going on for a few days, a couple of weeks, and maybe months. And suddenly, one morning, the wife looks out of the window and says, "Oh my God, did you tell her how to do laundry?" He's like, "No, I just washed our windows." How often do we look at other people, at other things, and choose actually based on looking through our own dirty windows, our own colored glasses? It could be pink glasses if we are in love, or it could be brown glasses if we had a lot of shit with that person. So, what if we took off our glasses, took off everything, all our points of view, and be in total allowance of everyone and everything that tells us to do or not to do things, to act, not to act, and just chose based on our own awareness, based on what is light or heavy, based on what we desire instead of what we are afraid of. Because a lot of times we act based on our fears. One of them I love, I just finished foundation with a class 4 days with the founders of Access Consciousness, Dr. Dan Hare and Gary Douglas. And one of the things that I kind of like stuck me, that we start judging ourselves kind of like before other people will judge us, kind of preemptive things, or we'll do things like harm ourselves, abuse ourselves, so others would not abuse us, or before they can abuse us, or we would leave the person before they leave us, we would move out before they move out. All of that is based on fear, on resistance, on something that's not creating our lives, but destroying our lives. And that's where that choice or necessity comes in. What if you actually allowed yourself to choose, allowed yourself to know what works for you, what doesn't work? And one of the tools, as I said, 10 seconds increments, choosing based on that, learning to choose. And you start with simple things. One of the exercises I did when I learned that tool, I would go outside and I would choose every 10 seconds either to walk differently or to look at different things or stop or pick up a flower or smell a flower, kind of like do little actions based on 10 seconds increments. And in those 10 seconds, what I found, I wasn't thinking anymore. I was just following the energy. I would choose based on what I desired instead of calculations and decisions that were not working anymore. The more I did that exercise, the more I learned how to choose, it started translating into my life. I would choose based on 10 seconds again, but bigger things. And then if it didn't work, I would choose again. Um, One of the examples was, let's say, I would choose a class based on ease of getting there. So I would say, okay, I'd like to take choice of possibility. Well, that might have been before the COVID. Now the only choice is to do it online or well, very few classes right now in person, which is kind of like a shame, but I'm talking about time BC, before COVID. Um, and so I would choose based on ease. At that time, the financial situation was different, and I would look at the prices of the tickets. I still do, because that gives me an information about the choice as well. So I would, one of those things, even before I used that tool, it was more kind of like the universe saying you're not going. It was ESB class that was Dr. Dane did before SOP was invented. I'm talking about way before. I was in Access, I think, about 2 months, maybe even less. But I wanted everything and now. And financially, I probably couldn't afford it at that time. I was already in that. But I was looking, it was in Santa Barbara. So I'm like, okay, tickets, tickets. Um, no, I'm sorry, I take it back. It was to Denver. Tickets to Denver were $800, which was like, ouch. And not even business class. It was regular economy ticket. Business, I think, was like 3,000, and the hotel was like $400 a night. And I'm like, I'd like to go, but I can't go. So that was a choice, and choosing something else after. Body class 4 months later was $100 round trip, and hotel was, I think, 50 or 60, 40 or $50. So it was like very inexpensive and very much ease to get there. So that's how I started learning how to choose based on energy. And eventually I learned how to choose based on my awareness, which is still energy. And this is time for our third. Wait a second. Time flies. It's the third break of the show. And you've been listening to Creating Abundance with Ease with myself, Dr. Helen Gitlevich, on Inspired Choices Network. And we'll be right back.
Many of us live our lives based on karma, on the past, and all the unfinished business in our lives. What would you choose if you did not have karma, or if you could choose what you desired instead? By tuning into Creating Abundance with Ease radio show with Dr. Helen Gitlevich, you'll receive tools and inspiration you can use to create the abundance in your life. You are an infinite being with infinite choices. Are you ready to have ease with creating abundance? Listen for Creating Abundance with Ease radio show every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Mountain, and 9 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
This is the Creating Abundance with Ease show with Dr. Helen Gitlevich. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email by sending to helen.g@att.net. Now, back to the program.
Welcome forward, everyone. And I'm Dr. Helen Gitlevich on Creating Abundance with Ease. And today our show topic is choice or necessity. And you've been listening to me every week, or this is your first time, I'm here every Wednesday at 11 o'clock live, and then you can listen as a podcast later on. But next week, we have a different show, Money as a Tool for Change. We'll be talking more about choice with money, more about necessity with money, and we also, well, it's actually, oh, I was just told this is the 30th TV episode next week. How appropriate for money as a tool for change. And how much can we change our money situation just by choosing more? Again, I'm talking about a lot of times we even choose not to have money out of resistance and reaction instead of choosing it. And we'll talk more next week, but right now I just want to kind of give an example, because if I know some people whose parents are wealthy and the kids resist and react their wealth, or people are poor and the kids actually associate with poverty and unconsciously and subconsciously out of obligation to the parents not to earn more than their parents. Is it a choice? No. It's that twisted reality that we are all part of, but we can get out of it by choosing something different. And this week, we are, it's about being who we are. It's about choosing for us. It's about not resisting and reacting to anything anybody says, being total allowance. And allowance is an interesting tool. A lot of people think of allowance as acceptance, which is being a doormat. It's not. Allowance is more, yeah, you would like to shit, but please shit over there, not on my carpet. It's about letting people choose what they choose. It's about choosing what works for you. If something doesn't work for you, you can say, you know what, if you do it again, I'll kill you. Or if you do it again, don't even come close to me. You're not my friend anymore. But a lot of times we swallow everything that people do to us out of obligation because we're friends. We don't have to. We don't have to take on crap. We don't have to take on other people abuse. Just because they're friends, just because they are boss, just because you're obligated to work with them or be with them, you don't have to. It's about choosing what works for you, what doesn't. It's about being. When we are being us, we don't care what people think. We don't care what people say. We know what's true for us and we choose accordingly. When we try to pretend, when we try to pretend that we care, and I say that specifically, pretend that we care, it doesn't work. That's when the obligation, the necessity kicks in. Because we have no idea what we desire if we are always doing the necessity, when we're acting out of obligation or out of resistance and reaction. I love Bob Newhart's Stop It. If you've never watched that sitcom, please do. It's on the YouTube everywhere. I love how he's saying, no, we don't do it here. Nope, stop it. Just stop it. Especially when she says, but I'm afraid. No, just stop it. And we don't go into that. We don't go into the stories, why we can or cannot do. Just stop it, just choose. And that's what I love about tools of access or Akashic Records. They work. They work in a way, they take us out of that fixed points of view, fixed realities where we are victims of abuse, victims of our own abuse, and empower us to know that we are much more than the combination of all the have to, must to, need to, cannot, will not, must not, all of those things. And our show is coming to kind of like end now, but you can join me next week for the Money as a Tool for Change. Also, you can join me where I'm doing clearings with Rachel Silber in a group. It's in the Facebook group, Being You Without Hiding. We're doing out of control clearings based on access consciousness. And we do it every day, different times of the day. It's not like set 11 o'clock. It's more whenever we can, we pop in there and do half an hour to 40 minutes of clearings. You can join us or not, whatever you choose. I'm also doing classes around the world. And at this moment, the only one that most likely is on is England. I'll be in London June 25th to June 27th doing 3-day body class with Vanita. And apparently England will be opening up May 15th. Taiwan and Israel most likely will be postponed. Taiwan most likely July or August. Israel, we're still waiting on the dates just because Israel right now requires vaccination. And in this 10 seconds, I'm not choosing it. And what else is possible? You can also find me on different Facebook groups or my own page, Creating Abundance with Ease, YouTube, all the podcasts. I have my websites, creatingabundancewithease.com, and you can schedule sessions. You can actually contact me if you would like to have a class in the area that's open right now or not. We can plan for the future. And just wanted to share a couple more things with you. And I just was reminded that I'm also on the app, on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Music, and over 97 podcast stations. You can find me everywhere if you choose to, and or not. And sometimes to kind of like motivate people, I found out that I'll tell them, you cannot listen to me. And they say, watch me. That's, I have 97 podcasts. I'm looking at the chat and I guess I misread. 97 podcasts. So 3 more weeks and I'll have episode 100. How does it get any better than that? So being experienced podcaster, I guess, makes me feel good or not. Just choice. Actually, I remember a class in Access Consciousness when I just started, which I haven't chosen, was happiness is just a choice. Because we choose how we are. We either choose misery or choose happiness. All of it is based on our point of view. And a lot of times we are aware of other people's happiness or unhappiness. And instead of choosing us, we choose their point of view. And thank you so much for listening. And I'll see you or you'll hear me sometime.
Thank you for choosing to listen to Creating Abundance with Ease radio show. Dr. Helen Gitlevich will return next Wednesday. at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Mountain, and 9 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have fun using the tools of the week in your life and start creating magic in your life and your body.